Hey guys, Perry Thompson is going to be an absolute stud at Auburn University. And then let's talk a little bit about Perry Thompson is going to be an absolute baller at Auburn University. We're also going to talk a little bit about the recruiting calendar and how that whole thing plays out. And then we're going to wrap it up, talk a little round ball, talk a little basketball. What's going on, Boog brethren? This is episode 18 of the Top Button Podcast, and I'm your host, Charlie Five, and we are going to absolutely roll our sleeves up and get to booging tonight. We're going to have an absolute blast. Today, this morning, this afternoon, whenever you're listening, I really appreciate it. Guys, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our boy, Ford Stokes. Ford, booging more than anybody. At Active Wealth Management, activewealth.com. Look, when you reach out to Ford, you are going to learn so many things about how so many of the different ways that you can benefit when you manage your money and you let Ford handle things for you. How would you like to just be able to delete the IRS from your retirement accounts? Ford can help you do that. He can help you learn how to pay less taxes during your retirement, and you're going to learn the power and the wonder of getting results in an advanced retirement plan and not just a cookie cutter PowerPoint presentation that you're going to get anywhere. This is a personalized retirement plan that he is going to help put together for you. He's a great guy. If call him just to talk Auburn, guy loves Auburn. We text all the time, just talking about basketball, recruiting, whatever. It's great to not only when you're talking money, have somebody that you can trust and that you can enjoy having a conversation with. Ford Stokes is that guy. Check him out, activewealth.com. All right, guys, my very first podcast, I said I was going to do a little bit of a signee profile from our 2024 class, do one at a time as they come. We started off with Cam Coleman, and it was, I rambled on for seemingly 35 minutes on how much I love him. And I think it's time to give props to, I would honestly say, this is not just exaggerating, I would say the most important player for so many reasons in this class, and that's Perry Thompson. Perry Thompson is going to be an absolute star at Auburn University. He has all the tools. I'm going to talk a little bit about what kind of player I think he might be, why you might have saw a little bit of the rankings dropping a little bit from the time he committed. I don't think it was a conspiracy. I don't think it's the whole Bama bump thing. I think it's just some circumstances that were just not playing in his favor. And then the perception and everything, how much that actually meant landing a guy like Perry Thompson. So if you don't know much about Perry, he's from Foley, Alabama, heavy Alabama territory, heavy Bama territory, tons of Bama alumni, big money folks in the Gulf Shores, the Mobiles, the Foleys. That's the home of Kenny Stabler. Okay, that's big Bama country. So getting him just in general, you got from the school that produced Julio Jones, DJ Fluker, Robert Lester, ton of Alabama stars from that area, and we pulled Perry Thompson. Perry is probably the most impressive thing about him is just how he looks physically. You're talking 6'3", right now, at least 200 pounds. He's probably going to play at 205, maybe even 210. Physical guy. He played safety in high school and probably could be just as good of a safety in college and in the NFL as he could be a wide receiver. He's just that gifted. The player to me, and when I watch Perry, you're not going to see just someone right off the bat that's going to jump off as just a mega polished route receiver. But what you're going to see is a guy that's just physically dominant, a guy that's going to play, I think, a lot like a Deebo Samuel. Okay. If you've watched the Super Bowl, if you watched the 49ers at all, Deebo he's a little bit shorter. He's only a 6', 6'1", but he's 215, and he's a guy that he's going to make the contested catches and he's going to punish you. And he can do it in multiple ways. He can run the jet sweeps. He can, take handoffs from, almost not necessarily under center, but from the tailback. He can take true tailback snaps, run the little slip screens and the reverses and things like that. And he is a physically bruising runner, a guy that's seeking contact. And I think you're going to get just that, but a taller version in Perry Thompson, especially early in his career, because I think it's going to take him a while because he's at a little bit of a disadvantage being, a summer enrollee. He's not here. He doesn't get to go through spring, but he's going to be working out. He was in Auburn recently, meeting with a friend of mine, and I saw some pictures of him already, and the guy that I'm hanging out with is not a small guy. He's not just a shrimp, and Perry just absolutely dwarfs him. But he's going to come in and he's going to be physically probably far further advanced than any of the wide receivers, but he's just, naturally he's just going to be behind a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how much he can absorb early, but I still think he can be effective as, I don't want to call it a gadget guy because I think that can be considered kind of offensive, but it's a pro for him because I think those type things are ways that you can get him the ball early in his career versus, going out and beating a man, beating an SEC defender on an out route, or beating an SEC defender on a slant right off the bat, or learning how to get open, read coverages, do things of that nature versus just, lining up and, going throwing a 50-50 ball. I think there's going to be a lot of little gadgets, for lack of a better word, type ways that you can use Perry Thompson, but he's proven that he can do it at a very high level. I think it's going to be a kind of an easy little transition into the way he could be used at Auburn early. I'd love to see him get a little slip screen like first couple of plays of the season. I love to see him, get some jet sweeps. I'd love to see him get some, drags across the middle where he gets the ball with space and it's just a 6'4", 205-pound freight train who runs a sub 4.5 going up against a 6 foot, 180-pound defensive back. Perry is going to run through your face. Like Marshawn Lynch says, run through a you-know-whose face. That's what Perry Thompson is going to bring to the table at wide receiver. And I don't know that we've had that guy. I can't think of that guy that we've had that would be someone somewhat similar to a Deebo Samuel type player. I just can't think of one that could do a little bit of everything. Probably Terrell Zachary would be one that is the closest that I can remember. But even Terrell was not – even T-Zac was not that physical. You know what I mean? He wanted to kind of run around you, and Perry can, but Perry is going to use his size and his aggressiveness to just absolutely, he'll abuse you if he can. If he can abuse you, he will absolutely abuse you. Perry started off as, he was the bell cow of the class. He was the 5-star. Consensus, they take all the recruiting rankings and average them up, and that's who is, that's when you average up across all the sites, he was a 5-star. And then you started to see as the season went on, his ranking would drop a little bit until he dropped sort of into that very like the highest 4-star that you could be, just borderline 5-star. And I know a lot of people right off the bat, they're thinking Bama, that's an Alabama thing, conspiracy, Bama bump type thing. But I think really what it is Foley was not very good. They just weren't Foley High School was just not a very good team this year. I don't even think they made the playoffs. And I don't think he really had the benefit of having a very good quarterback either. I think he just didn't get the production. I think he had like a little over, a little over 700 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns in 10 games, 100, a little over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. He even had to play a few few plays at quarterback, but he had to play also a fairly good amount of defense, which he excelled at. So he had to play a little bit all over the field, and he didn't have that marquee 1,300 yards receiving that a Bryce Kane had, or 1,200 yards or 1,300 yards receiving that a Cam Coleman had. But again, that's more of a functionality of the team that he was on and the talent that was surrounding him. And being a wide receiver, you're somewhat dependent. You're somewhat dependent on the guy that gets you the ball. You're somewhat dependent on the offensive line to be able to protect the guy that can get you the ball. So he just had one of those years that it was just a okay, not a spectacular jump off the page statistical year, which I think hurt him, which was not really a ton of the fault of himself. So he went into the Under Armour practices, did really well, had 2 or 3 catches in the Under Armour game, showed to me that he can play at the top. He can play at this level. He can play in the SEC, and I think he can play early. So again, I wouldn't get caught up in the ranking drop. You're going to have a 6'4", 200-plus pound kid that's mega physical, that is physically ready to go, physically ready-made. It's just, can he come in with the work ethic that he's already shown that he has? I know he's got the drive. I loved the documentary he did to kind of show where he's coming from, and where he's been in his past, and the motivation to be great at Auburn. I think he's going to be a stud. And for those that are listening, you're probably laughing a little bit that know some of the banter that I've had with people back and forth. I said I'm not going to be allowed to enjoy his success because I doubted him. I doubted him towards the end because of the perception that we're going to talk about. I doubted him a little bit when the sky got a little cloudy on whether or not he would end up at Auburn. He did the big flip. He was the big flipper. He wasn't the first, but he was the one that kind of drove the boat on all this just surge in the summer of recruiting commitments and flips and things like that. He wanted, he kind of talked with DeMarcus Riddick, and he pushed for, a KJ Bolden. We ultimately didn't get. He pushed for Malcolm Simmons. He started getting this ball rolling on all these dudes. The Jay Crawfords, he went after Jay Crawford. He got Jay Crawford, the corner from Parkview, 4-star guy that we had to have. So many of these guys he led the recruitment on. And that was, honestly, I would say he is if you had to pick one person that was the MVP of the class from a recruiting perspective, it's Perry, hands down. It's Perry, hands down. If you don't get Perry, if you don't get Perry, I honestly think you're somewhere in the neighborhood of a 12th to 15th ranked class, because he meant that much to everybody, the class around him, the talent around him. He was the one that turned the heads, that said, okay, this is something serious. This is something special. Let's go play with this guy. And that's one thing that I'll always be thankful for. But I got a little nervous towards the end, and, I doubted him. I just felt like the years and years of watching Alabama take us to the end and break our hearts, I just felt like it was coming again, and he ultimately hung in there, and through had to be some of the most immense pressure. There were stories of signing day night where there was individuals from Alabama that were sitting there in his driveway or outside of his driveway with papers, with signing papers, just hoping they could catch him weak or catch him at the right time and get him to sign to flip to Alabama on signing day, under the table, over the table, whatever. the pressure was there. They were fighting tooth and nail to keep him, or to get him back, basically, not keep him, to get him back into the class. That was just one they knew they couldn't lose. They did not want to lose. But ultimately, he did the whole triple deke on signing day. Grab the hat, throw it down, grab the other hat, throw it down, and we really are worried. And then he opens the jersey, opens the jacket, and he's got the Auburn jersey underneath. Just an absolute, man. I've said it on a previous show, and some people argued with me, but since Nick Saban was at Alabama, recruits that he wanted, guys that he pursued to the very end, the guys that he would not give up on, he just didn't miss, especially from that Mobile area. We've had some guys come out of Mobile. I question how hard or how aggressively they pushed to get those guys. And those dudes turned out to be great players at Auburn, but it just seems like this one was one where they gave their best shot and you punched them in the face and you took their lunch money and you made them like it. So I'll always be grateful for Perry for that, but I'm going to make sure you guys hold me accountable too. I doubted him, so I'm not allowed to celebrate his touchdown. So, y'all tag me on Twitter when Rivaldo Fairweather catches a fade, when Perry dominates like he absolutely will. You make sure to let me know it. You doubted him. You doubted him, C5. You don't deserve to stand up and cheer. And hey, I'm going to be a man of my word. I'm going to hold myself to it as well. But I'm excited about Perry, even though I can't. I'm banning myself from being able to cheer for him. I'm going to be a closet fan. I'm not going to let anybody know it, but the dude's going to be special, and he'll be. He could be I don't want to say statue guy, but he could be on that level of. He has the opportunity to be on that level of impact as far as changing the narrative about Auburn. And I, for one, cannot wait for him to get here. I cannot wait for him to get here in the summer. He's going to be absolutely special. Before we go, talk a little bit more about recruiting for 2024 into 2025. You guys need to check out plainscoffee.com. Use coupon code BUTTON for 10% off. Stop buying store-bought garbage that's been sitting in a warehouse for months. Get you some freshly ground coffee from all over the world. Different grounds, different grinds from different types of coffee from everywhere. You can have it, and you can have it freshly ground the day before it ships to your house. So when it shows up, the biggest fear that you need to have is my coffee that I buy from Sam's Club going to have mold in it. Is the delivery person, is it going to be safe in their hands? Because the aroma, could they steal my plainscoffee.com? Because it's going to smell, it's going to be that fresh, it's going to be that hard, that irresistible for them to just place on the front doorstep and leave it there. It's going to be an intoxicating fragrance. So if you don't like coffee, they got tea too. So check them out, plainscoffee.com. Use coupon code BUTTON and save 15% off. All right, so this is not going to be heavy intel driven, but I think it'll be something that's very educational, that I think is very important when you're talking about recruiting. If you want to get into recruiting and you want to understand why things are going the way they're going, the one thing you have to understand is how the recruiting calendar works and terminology of that recruiting calendar. Okay. It's been kind of quiet. It's been a little bit slow lately. And one of the reasons is because we're in what's called right now a recruiting dead period. There's 4 different types of periods that you need to know about. Okay. I'll start off with a dead period, which is what we're in right now. It goes all the way through March 3rd. That's why you're seeing a lot of coaches go on vacations. Hugh's taking pictures at different places. I've heard he's getting to play golf at Augusta National. This is a good time for them to vacation and sort of spend time with their families, because during a dead period, You can't go visit players, and they can't come visit you. So there's no visits on campus. There's no visits of you going to their school. The only thing you can do really is limited, phone, texts, calls, things of that nature. So from that started on February the 5th. It's the 12th now. So we're about a week into it. February 5th all the way through March 3rd. So basically a month. That is called a dead period. Okay. So remember that dead period, dead. Can't go. They can't come here. We can't go there. Then after March 3rd, we're going to have what's called a quiet period. Okay. That's where you can start having people back on campus. And if you notice, that's going to be right along the same time that spring practice starts. Because you notice you always have big spring visitors for spring practices. You're going to have big visitors for your A-Day game. That's when you're going to start seeing, I think, a few more commits start popping off. Guys can come to campus. You can start to kind of build that momentum. You can build and build and build. They can come to your campus. You cannot go see them, though. Okay, so you got dead period. I can't come see you. You can't come see me. Then you got quiet period, March 4th through April 14th. That's over a month. That's almost a month and a half of possible visit time. You can come see me. I can't come see you. All right, so then after A-Day, after that whole deal goes down, it goes to what's called a contact period. All right. So you got dead period, you got quiet period, then you got contact period. Okay. What does contact period mean? Means you can come see me and I can come see you. I can come to your school. I can come talk to you. You got to be careful there because you only get X amount of in-person visits, especially from the head coach per year. So this is when you see a lot of your position coaches going out and stuff like that. So contact period means I can come see you and we can talk, and you can come see me. You can do a little bit of both. And typically you'll get a lot of commits. I think that's whenever around that time. I think Big Cat typically is in that June, July, but you could have, a mini cookout, something, some type of thing like that. Basically, a contact is a period of time where I can come see you and you can come see me. A contact period is that period of time when it's permissible for authorized athletic department members to make in-person off-campus recruiting evaluations. Yes. All right. So April 15th through May 25th. Then you have another dead period. It's short. It's only 3 days. Typically that's around exam time. That's whenever kids are graduations, stuff like that. Dead period again. I can't come see you. You can't come see me, but we can talk on the phone. We can text. Then it's the summertime. And summertime is pretty much always a quiet period, which means you can come see me, but I can't come see you. And that's when you have your Big Cat weekends. That's when you have your camps. That's when you start having a ton of commits. That's when you do a lot of your in-person evaluations on your campus. That's when your Bryce Kane. That's when you picked up on Bryce Kane last year. He came to one of your camps during this time and absolutely dominated. Was the best player on the field, and that's even with Cam Coleman in attendance. Walker White got the stories of him and Bryce sneaking into, Duck Sanford Stadium and, in Auburn, the Auburn High School Stadium to throw when they're here on a visit, like stuff like that. That's going to be a big time for that, is in those summer months, and then the football season starts, and it's pretty much an, almost like an open season type deal where I can come evaluate you. Maybe I can't talk to you, but I can come to your school and evaluate you. You can come see me, all that good stuff. So it's very important to understand, hey, we're not getting any commits right now. We're not seeing any news right now. We don't even know if we're okay where we stand with a lot of guys. It's just going to be that way for the next 20, 30 days because of the dead period that we're in. And not only that, But even before the dead period, you had all your different coaching staff hires and transition and things of that nature. So it's just a weird time, and we're going through this little dead period of no contact. But once it starts opening, you best believe that the very first weekend that you can have kids, we're going to be slam packed with info, slam packed with visitors, slam packed with information to talk about. So hang in there. It's going to it's going to be a great class. You're way ahead of the ball game. You're way ahead of the ball game. You're top 10, you're top 10, even with a big decommitment. You're a top 10, 12 class already at this point in time. And you got several high caliber folks that are just right there on the edge. You go look at on threes has a RPM, their prediction model type thing where it takes, articles and visits and tweets and comments and things like that. And it kind of weights out who they feel like leads for certain players. Just go look at that and look at the Auburn list. And you got Micah DeBose, 5-star offensive tackle. You got, all kinds of guys where Auburn is sitting right where they need to be. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for any type of predictions from your recruiting writers and things like that. I think most of that's going to happen once this dead period lifts. I think it's going to be pedal to the metal because you got a full staff, you got a full coaching staff. You don't have any portal stuff to worry about for 2 months. Your roster's sort of set through spring. All you got to focus on is high school recruiting, and that's what we're going to do. So be on the lookout. I'll keep you in the loop as best I can. So moving on, last thing we'll talk about is Auburn basketball. Had a great week last week that ended very disappointing, but you had a huge emotional win in the middle of the week against Alabama, and then you go on the road to that godforsaken gym in Gainesville that smells like a swimming pool that we, for some reason, cannot shoot. I guess it's the chlorine overtakes us, and we cannot shoot when we hit this stadium. It's the same. They're the same colors. Like I don't get it. But there's voodoo in there in the swamp. There's something going on. We can't score there. I don't know what it is. We got our guards who don't turn the ball over, start turning it over. You shoot nearly 40% from three against Alabama. Granted, it is at home, and you go and you shoot under 20%, I believe, from three in Gainesville. Your big guys who combined for 50 points against Alabama. You have 14 or 15 from Broome, which is his usual, and then Jalen sort of disappears. It's just a bad game. And then on top it all off, Florida has an off week. Essentially no midweek game. Not essentially. They had no midweek game. So they had one whole week to prepare, and they did look like they had more energy than Auburn. Auburn looked tired. It's not an excuse. It just is the reality. They look tired, and we did not look like we were ready to play. And the SEC schedule is a grind. It's an absolute meat grinder. I mean, you look at teams that Tennessee just gets absolutely boat raced by Texas A&M on the road. It's hard to win. It's just really hard to win on the road in the SEC. So what do you got coming up? You're about to play probably two of the top 5 teams in the conference, two of the top 5 or 6 teams in the conference. You're going to play South Carolina, who is probably a more physical version of Florida. You're going to play them, but you do get to play them at home. And then you have Kentucky, College Game Day, who I believe has been here like 3 or 4, either 3 consecutive years or 3 years out of the last 4, which is insane. Absolutely insane. You're going to have College Game Day. You're going to have huge atmospheres at both of these games. Both of these games are going to be massive. It's weird to say that I feel a lot better about Kentucky than I do South Carolina, just because of the matchup of the big guys on the inside. I mean, they got one dude who's like 6'8", 6'9", 300 pounds. Like they got a big guy that can absolutely dominate on the inside. I watched when they played Tennessee and they beat Tennessee on the road at Tennessee. They would feed it into him. I believe his last name's Mack, and he would literally just back down he would back down Tennessee's big guy until the Tennessee guy either fouled him or he got right up under the rim and made a little jump hook or spin off with a layup, something like that. So can Janai handle him? I think Dylan can. I think Dylan is physical enough. He may foul out, but I think Dylan can. But Janai seems to get a little bit frustrated with more physical type big man. If you're not physical, if you don't want to bang and put hands on him, Janai can make you look silly. He can make you look silly, and I'm wondering if the size of this guy, Janai's quickness can hurt him on the offensive side of the court. But I do worry about defense and being able to make stops. But again, when we play at Neville, throw everything that you think about this Auburn team completely out the window, because it's just borderline impossible to beat Auburn in Neville Arena. From the fans to the atmosphere to the way the noise and the confidence that we play with is at a level that's just incredible. And Bruce is going to be all over these guys for the egg they laid in Gainesville. So I'm anxious to see. I really honestly think the South Carolina game I don't like to say must wins. I don't like to talk about stuff like that, but I think it's going to be difficult to win the SEC outright anyway. It's going to be even tougher to get a share because I think max you can only lose one more game. I think you got only one more game that you can lose to possibly get a share of the SEC regular season title. You probably only have one more, maybe two, to get a 1 seed in the SEC tournament. You got to win your home games. You got 4 of those left, and 2 of them are against very tough opponents. And South Carolina may be the best one that you'll face at Neville all year. They've been able to win on the road. They've knocked off Tennessee and Kentucky. They've beat Tennessee at Tennessee. They've proven they can go win on the road. They're going to be a tough matchup. Guard play and shooting to me is the key. That's all. I say it all the time. If you have good guard play and you can shoot threes, this team just plays good enough defense that if you can shoot, you'll be able to blow teams out. That's why we dominate people when we win games, because we're turning them over and we're hitting shots. And we're not turning it over. That's another key, us not turning it over. So we just seem to not turn the ball over a ton either. I think you played Alabama. I think you had 5 turnovers the whole game, which is incredible. I think you averaged somewhere around 9.5 to 10 turnovers a game, which is pretty average. And then you only turn it over like 4 or 5 times against Alabama. So at home is a completely different ball game. The matchup is a little bit scary, but again, it's at Neville, so throw the records out. And then you got Kentucky Saturday. Kentucky's reeling, man. But again, sometimes the hurt dog is the most dangerous. Sometimes the hurt dog is the one you got to be careful because they'll typically bite you. So you got to be careful always with Kentucky. But I'm hoping I know we're not going to overlook Kentucky. I'm hoping, and I would think you wouldn't overlook South Carolina, but I hope you're not too excited for that college game day atmosphere that you don't take this one 100% serious, because you've got to win the next 2 games. If you want to be a 1 seed in the SEC tournament, if you want to have a shot to have a share of the title, you got to win the next 2 games. You absolutely have to, because then you go on the road at Georgia, on the road at Tennessee. You've seen how we play on the road. We I think Florida's kind of an anomaly, but you play a lot of close games where you possibly could, you've maybe had some chances to win some tough games on the road, and then you've had some, just you couldn't quite shoot your way out of it because you struggle a little bit offensively on the road at times. So very, very important week. Let's get Saturday out of our memory bank. And let's roll, man. Let's roll. Let's pack Neville. Let's get after it. Let's get after South Carolina. That's number one. South Carolina is the most important game on the schedule right now. You got to win that one. And then let's absolutely melt the television set when game day comes to town and burn that one up as well and go ahead and take down Kentucky. And then I feel like you have a little breathing room, because if you just split one of the road games, your last three, you're going to be big time favorites over the last three games on your schedule. So big week. Let's get it done. I really appreciate you guys for listening. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about Perry Thompson. Let me know what you think about the recruiting calendar. If you got any questions about that in the comments, let me know what you think about our basketball outlook this week. Just let's interact. Let's have some fun. And then again, I appreciate you guys from listening. You can follow me on Twitter at @the_Charlie_5. Like and subscribe this channel. We've grown over almost 1,000 subscribers since we started this thing. It's crazy. Tell your friends. Send them a link. Tell them to subscribe to Auburn Daily YouTube. And then, if you ever want to come hang out on Monday nights, I'm at Bunkers in Auburn around 5:30 every Monday night, recording the Dad Bod Golf Pod. So you can catch me around town pretty much anywhere. So I appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll get back at you on Thursday. Let's see what happens between now and Thursday. Stay buttoned.